So our next speaker is Karthik Swaminathan. So Karthik brings with him 2 decades of experience in successfully ideating, creating, and delivering innovative products and solutions in the fintech space. He has worked on a range of solutions across investment and wealth management, global payments, lending, trading, financial planning, asset management, and so on. And as you can see in his background, he is the author of the book 3F, which is Future FinTech Framework. So let me welcome Karthik for his session. Karthik, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Narottam. And I think besides the wonderful intro that and quick intro you gave, I think the other presenters have kind of laid a base for orienting people to empathy and the way people should collaborate on a project and the way a platform will evolve probably in the digital space. The earlier speaker spoke on that. So I probably feel this will tie up very beautifully into all that. And welcome to you all. I'll just share my screen and present to you about this recent book I have written called Future FinTech Framework. I hope you're able to see the screen.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I just shared the screen. Okay, great. So as the book name says, it's 3F Future FinTech Framework. It's largely a vision to simplify understanding, foster innovation, and accelerate growth in fintech. And in the next few slides, we'll try to quickly understand why and how. This is. So typically, this is what the agenda is. In the next maybe 20 minutes, we'll cover and take some questions. The first is fintech, which is the action and the opportunity. Then we get into the book, which is what the framework does. Section 1 is fintech trends. There are 3 frameworks in section 2, and then there are certain key aspects in fintech which you need to talk about. And the benefits of the framework, 3F. And then we go on to Q&A, and that's how we'll do it. So we all know, we've probably heard of the whole fintech space. We've seen it grow in the last few years. This has become quite ubiquitous, if I have to use that word. It's becoming embedded. So typically, if you see fintech as a solution is largely a merger of these two words, so the financial services or finance and technology. That's how this originated. But then, does it end there? It probably started with that application of technology to financial services. But then there are a lot of questions, because if you see certain points which I raise in this slide further, and I'm sure you also have those points, the fintech is metamorphosed into something totally different, right? Today fintech is getting embedded into other businesses. So be it e-commerce, ed tech, health tech, or any tech you or industry talk about, unless there is very high-end engineering involved in it, fintech is going to play a big role. So you cannot talk of fintech in isolation to these industries, because unless fintech empowers these industries, or fintech plus digital, I'm changing the flavor, probably they will not reach different use cases or benefits which are being propagated, especially in the digital world, right? So it's getting embedded. We see a lot of automation terms like robotic process automation, AI, ML, and we've had series of presentations on those. We see regulations. Regulations are very important. You see host of regulations emerging, right from your privacy regulations, security playing a very big role. Today, probably the customer needs to be more aware of security while using a product than it was. Today banks send you SMS, emailers talking to you, making you aware of how not to share OTPs or how to be careful of phishing. 5 years back, these things were not known of, and going forward, this is going to change in flavor in many big way, right? So all this is becoming part of what fintech and digital is going to be. There is unbundling and bundling in the space. So again, that leads to a lot of chaos, confusion. The understanding is not able to develop, and that's not all. On the other side, you see digital world is getting embedded with the fintech space. Big data and analytics we are talking about, and again, these are huge subjects in themselves, and they impact fintech and the digital ecosystem in a very big way. You talk about new age devices and interfaces. You talk about social media. You talk about identity. Identity is emerging as a separate segment tomorrow that may become a very big business model in itself, and the likes of those. And that's not all again. We also have terms like accelerator, sandboxes. What are all these, right? And what do you mean by all this, right? So that's one aspect of the doubt or question most of us will have. While this is happening, we also see on the fintech side, a lot of new players have evolved. I spoke of unbundling and bundling in the earlier slides. So you already see people evolving in account financing, be it payroll, cryptos, personal finance, robo advisory, digital banking, insurance. You see variety of solutions within them emerging, right? Across, be it a B2B, B2C, B2B, B2C, different types of players. So there are different players emerging, and they are the outcome of the structure which is existing in the market, the regulations, and the way technology is enabling them, and the whole ecosystem basically, right? So they don't occur in isolation. The bundling and unbundling, or the way people are, the different segments are arising. So, and this is important if you want to identify an opportunity both from career and business perspective. This understanding is important. So this is happening. Besides that, domestically and also as a trend, we see various segments evolving. Bill pay. You see neo banks. You see a new trend in the fintech called new umbrella entity, which is coming in India. You see a good emphasis on cross-border payment, financial inclusion, agri-tech, reg-tech, buy now, pay later. So today, even if you are a ed tech and you want to subscribe to a program or a course online, you provide them EMI facility, and buy now, pay later has emerged as a very good option, where you buy anything now and pay later, either in installment or after a particular point in time. So that has emerged as a segment. But typically, if you see, that is somewhat closer to and cannibalizing to what a credit card as a segment does. So there is a lot of these convergence and, unbundling, bundling typically. In India, you see invoice financing coming, identity I spoke of, and then we also have digital only banks. So the first, I spoke of various developments and trends. Second, I'm talking about how various players are evolving and how do I make sense of it. And then once I've spoken to you about so much happening in the segment, I also need to tell you about opportunity. I'll just quickly rush past these slides. The opportunity is, the investment in especially the fintech space is expected to be growing by 2 to 2.5 times, maybe from 60 billion to 150 billion dollars in the next 4 to 5 years. And this is as per a recent BCG, I think NASCOM or FICCI BCG report. And these are very recent numbers which has just come, and India has roughly 2,200 fintechs, which will grow to 2,700 or 800 fintechs. So this is the size of opportunity. And the other side, you also see. So this is as far as the demand supply side is concerned. The demand side, you see adoption increasing of digital product, ecosystem changing with the 4G, 5G also likely to come in next 5 years. And then you see a lot of youngsters coming in and the likes of those. So the demand side is also growing, which will drive the fintech and digital world. And this is not just India. So this is, though this is India, globally this opportunity is much big. So we as professionals in the fintech product or the digital space, this opportunity is going to be much wider. So there are over 25,000 fintech only players, which is a global opportunity. And it is, as I said, it is not just how the ecosystem is changing, demand side being increasing, investments coming in. There is a big focus by governments also in this space. So why? Because fintech and digital will accelerate overall economic growth. It will improve social, economic upliftment, financial inclusion. It will be a shared economy. So a lot of these things, which even some of the earlier speakers spoke of in terms of a platform, marketplace, all that will be enabled through a fintech and digital revolution, and the investments and opportunities there. Again, some quick numbers with respect to the investments globally in the fintech despite pandemic. And I very recently, for this quarter, I think March quarter, in one of the events, I recently learned that this quarter has been the largest in terms of the fintech based private equity investments. So I don't have the exact numbers, but this has come from a valid source, so I'm just sharing. So that's just the opportunity side. So the problem or the doubts questions you have, the opportunity, and now come to what this framework is all about, right? Because eventually, so why 3F? Why this future fintech framework? So I figured out that having spent 20 years, launched many products from concept to launch with a high degree of success, working with different stakeholders, right from your legal teams, compliance team, to operation team, to technology team, to marketing teams. Because as a product guy, that's the thrill in the job, right? You break across silos, and I basically figured out that there is a need for a framework and model which will assimilate all these things happening around us, and I need to simplify it basically, right? To a large extent possible. So that's how this whole book, 3F Future Fintech Framework, is born, which is basically nothing but a vision to simplify understanding, foster innovation, and accelerate growth in fintech. And we'll see how that is possible. Now, so there are three sections to this whole concept of future fintech framework in a book form. Section 1 is trends and themes in fintech, which is very crisply explained. Someone with very basic knowledge and exposure can do it. Even a graduate can very easily understand. Even if he has used a mobile banking app, he has adequate understanding to understand what I'm talking in the book. So section 1 is there are themes and trends. Section 2, there are three unique frameworks, very generic in nature, as part of 3F. And then section 4 are 4 key aspects which you need to be mindful of. So this is how the book is broken. I start with section 1. As I said, there are 64 themes, given the opportunity, the time and what we need to communicate within that short time. I'm not been in a position to probably take you through everything, but I'll just give you a glimpse. So there are 64 themes which I have, kind of broken everything into those 64. This will cover almost 99 to 100% of the ecosystem, and it's very generic. So for example, so this word map, which will tell you many of those themes, I won't do it, but I'll just highlight some of those. Say onboarding is a theme, right? In any fintech and digital, onboarding is the first activity, and it involves many things, right? From compliance to improving the onboarding success rate, to the way you handle leads. So many things are there. So it just doesn't end there. So I just give you a glimpse there. Again, these are just 8-10 lines, 12 lines to give you adequate information to get a picture of what is happening there. There is a talk about digital footprint, identity, disintermediation, aggregation. I talk about blockchain, 5G. 5G is a trend because tomorrow that's going to really accelerate the way you want to, decimate or to accelerate the fintech space, or to improve connectivity. That's what will enable a lot of new types of solutions and services. Share of wallet. So I bring in a lot of these commercial terms because eventually all this is meant for a commercial entity. So share of wallet, single view of customers, payments, analytics, privacy, based on these GDPR norms and like. So I've basically explained these 64 themes as part of the first part. Now, then we come to specific, which is your typical of 3 frameworks. What are those 3 frameworks? The first framework is what I call as FDLC. FDLC is FinTech Digital Life Cycle. What is FDLC, or FinTech Digital Life Cycle? I'll just give you a glimpse again, not telling you everything. So there are roughly 7 stages in an FDLC. If a lot of you must be aware of what Agile is. Agile has 7 stages for any project management, any product, any geography, any technology. Agile will remain agile. It is agnostic. Same way, FDLC will remain FDLC across any digital or fintech product. Every product will have acquisition of client and onboarding of clients, and it will end with offboarding. And then there are few stages in between. Again, I leave that curiosity between audience. And again, as I said, given the paucity of time, I'll try to do justice, but still tell you a few more details on what constitutes the fintech digital life cycle. Okay, so what is this fintech digital life cycle? As I said, fintech digital life cycle is tech and product agnostic. So be it any digital or fintech product, more or less, it will all fall in this life cycle. It will pass through these stages. So there are 7 stages. So you can see those 7 stages and 39 sub stages that set a direction for innovation and creating engaging user journeys. So once anyone reads it, if you are a product professional, if you are a business professional or a compliance professional, but working on a digital or fintech product, or anyone who's to do with this whole chain of activity, knowledge of the fintech digital life cycle will ensure that you orient yourself to this journey, because eventually, irrespective of what the product is, it will all boil down to the journey, because we have to make it engaging. So there are 7 stages and 39 sub stages in this whole picture, wherein in each of those elements I try to give you an idea of how you can, it basically tunes you to ideate and innovate. Let me give you a small instance. For example, one of the sub stages is called call to action. So whenever you design your product, in each of your product, you need to ensure that a call to action is embedded into every activity or a design you do. So some of it, so these are aspects which I mentioned. And so, as I said, this is just one element. There are 39 such sub element, and then those seven stages is where I've created those compartments, which will, some of them are very unique and again very simple, but so 7 stages, 39 sub stages. And the good part is, the more frictionless these stages are, the more digital these stages are, the more smoother is the journey. The more smoother is the journey, the better is the engagement. The better is the engagement, that means more share of wallet, higher LTV, better NPS. Though I'm making this as a simple statement, logically that's how it flows. You'll have to put some effort on it. It doesn't. That's how probably a lot of us will keep our jobs in making that happen. But despite all that, this framework will help you do that. That's the point I want to make. So this is as far as FDLC, which is one of the core frameworks here, is concerned. Then I have something called as a FLAIR, FinTech Logical Architecture. What is FinTech Logical Architecture? See, a lot of us have probably even seen a lot of our presentations and images. So we have functional architecture, technical architecture, and the likes of those, And I said, I think one of the earlier presenters also mentioned about collaboration between teams and empathy between teams, understanding the other silos. How does that happen? So that's where I decided to make. So what I did was, based on my experience, I found out that any system, the components in terms of the innovation and the way probably it will head, so keeping some future in mind and present in mind, and the collaboration between teams, I figured out that there are 14 components in any architecture. So I created these 14 components. Now, understanding of these components will basically simplify the whole architecture for everyone. So if tomorrow a compliance team can talk to or appreciate what a technical team does, or IT team does, or IT team will appreciate from the book, because I've talked about regulations in the book, they will appreciate the perspective from which the compliance team is coming from. Because today, the unfortunate part is, it's not about that people cannot develop the understanding, but these silos and the way that we're tuned in a way that the moment I talk to you about compliance and legal team, you find them as objections. I think that's the way everyone is tuned. In my opinion, that's not the case, because I have seen that there are obviously some challenges there. It's not as smooth, but despite that, a lot of it can be bridged. Now, this is not just among compliance, this is also amongst product managers, marketing managers, because today marketing manager is hugely embedded in the whole supply chain. He will be part of the whole thing where your campaigns are done, your engagements are done. So right from acquisition of client, the usage of coupon code, how it flows into the system, tracking the effectiveness of campaign. So they are all so deeply embedded in the whole sphere, right? And then the IT manager will enable it. So there has to be a common framework or a architecture to help them. So this is where this framework or the architecture, with starting with data, core layer, frontal layers, the rest again I leave it for your. Again, these are not something I'm leaving because they are very high end, or I have simplified it. So the moment you probably get to read it, you'll find it very familiar, and you'll probably relate to what I'm saying there. So this architecture serves as a bridge between functionality and system requirement. It fosters collaboration between internal and with partners. There is this concept of hollowing the core. Many industries, the core system are getting hollowed because the peripheral systems are emerging as stronger. So gradually the core system. So same thing in the fintech and financial services. They say the core banking is becoming hollow because the peripheral systems are getting stronger, and everything is going to be API driven tomorrow. So core will be probably become the bare core. So there is this concept of following the core. So this will incorporate that, because the way I evolved is I've kept the core at central, and then I've evolved many of the existing functionality into logical blocks and put them into various layers. That's what I've done. So it supports incremental addition. And then tomorrow, as it will evolve, you can, some of these layers can merge into it based on how the ecosystem evolves, how the vendor ecosystem develops, how probably the customer adopts to it, and the likes of those. So the way, so I've left that scope to evolve, but it won't evolve in a very drastic way. It will, at the best, if I've identified 14 components, that 14 can become 15 or 16, or maybe 14 can become a 13 or 12. That way it can probably move, not that 14 will become a 30 component layer. So to that extent, this understanding helps. Finally, I talk about API marketplace very quickly. Tomorrow, in my opinion, this is based on my experience and some practical cues that I see, and the gaps that I see. And according to me, the only solution for this whole ecosystem to emerge, accelerate in a very big way, is the emergence of strong players who are nothing but API marketplaces. We already have such players in a separate segment. If I'm sure most of you, being product and technical in nature, you are probably exposed to creating a website in some form. So what do you do when you make a website? You typically try to book a domain name, you figure out your hosting, then you figure out whether you want to do it in a WordPress, Joomla, Drupal. So the content management. So basically, content management is the core system, because in a website which is driven by content, CMS is the core system. So you figure out your core system, and then once you figure out core system, you figure out templates. So you will buy a template, or maybe use some free templates. Based on the template, you will populate data, content, images, words, and put it in a flow and design the site. And then once you do that, you add plugins to it. What are those plugins? If it is a form, you will add a captcha plugin. If it is a social media, you want someone to like your page, or you want some response to be given, so you'll add social media plugins. You will add, if you want to add a payment in your site, so if it is a site where you have defined a product and you want someone to buy that product, you'll add a plugin or an API from the payment gateway. So this is how you build a site, right? Typically today, the same way tomorrow, logically this is possible today, even technically, though regulations and the marketplace has to evolve, which I feel will kind of evolve in the next 2-3 years. And Singapore, for example, has something called APIX, right? API exchange. India has bits and pieces, certain, for example, the NPCI has created a they have not, I won't call it a marketplace the way I have explained in my book, but they are slightly primitive, but they have listed APIs with documentation there for the benefit of all. But gradually that will morph into a API marketplace where a lot of other things will come, and you can simply pick and choose, just like how I explained for a website, and create your own bank, financial services system, and the likes of those. So that's the way this will work. It will accelerate go to market, it will accelerate partnership, and that's how this typically work. A very good example, if you have used Rapid API, you will probably know. If you just go and use this website called Rapid API, again, that is still not reached the way I have explained in my book, but logically that is the way it will head in the next 2 to 3 years, or at best 1 or 2 year plus minus. So that's the way things will head. And
can you quickly that?
Yeah, just 2 minutes. Yeah. So then as I said, the section 3 of the book is 4 key aspects. Very quickly, what are those 4 key aspects? I talk about different fintech players, right from regulator to intermediaries to the actual players, emerging players, new type of players. So I told you buy now, pay later is a new segment which is emerging. So I talk about some of those. Then I crucially talk about income, cost, and pricing paradigms, because eventually, though we can design good products and user journey, they have to be commercially viable. So there has to be a commercial aspect to it. So I talk about various trends. So for example, one trend is this move from capex to opex. This is a very common digital trend across all fintech and digital product, that there is a trend to move from capex to opex. So that's just one element. There are many such elements I've discussed, and I've tracked the evolution of how the income or cost mix is changed over a period, all that. So I'm giving you that input with respect to income cost. I have again broken all the regulations into some logical clusters without getting into specific regulations globally. For example, privacy regulation, I talk about generic capability of privacy regulation. They will more or less be the same globally. Only thing what will vary is if in India they ask you to store for 5 years, somewhere it could be for 7 years, and there could be certain other fundamental aspects to it wherein they put the onus on customer, some put the onus on the producer. That may be a varying, but fundamentally the regulations remain the same. That's number 3. And fourth is I've talked about roles and career opportunities. Just to give you a cue again, I think 20 years back or even 15 years back, a lot of us have not heard of product managers, business analysts, and project managers in a bank, right? But today, no bank can run without product managers, analysts, and likes of those. So that has been a very big shift in the last 15, 20 years. Same way, I track few shifts. Some of it is data scientist, data. Obviously, data is one shift. Then there are many other shifts which I'm talking about that will help you orient off to various roles which are emerging in this segment. So net, that's the way it is. Then just a summary. Section 1, key trends and themes. It will help you orient and trigger ideas. Section 2, 3 unique frameworks on as part of 3F Future FinTech framework, which will give you help, which will help you give shape to the ideas in terms of user journey, system component, functionality, and build a solution. Which are those 3 components? FDLC, FinTech Digital Lifecycle, Flare, FinTech Logical Architecture, and FAN, which is FinTech API Marketplace, which will help you build the solution. And section 3 are 4 key aspects which we spoke of. One is pricing, second is regulation, third is players, and fourth is the emerging carrier ecosystem. This is very quick, benefit of all. All the players will benefit in this way: individual, better collaboration, effective articulation, better go-to-market, better products, better UI, UX, better engagement, better demos, POCs, and some quick, for example, you cannot sell anything if you can't tell anything. So I help you tell those stories. And then at the end of day, customer-centric fintech solutions are going to win. So these are some of the quick, thoughts I have in terms of quotes, which how the book relates to. And very quickly, I have a 25% discount code for all participants. You can use this code SCMHRD 2022 on Notion Press. Search for Future FinTech Framework. And if you use this, you can do that. It is also there on Amazon and Kindle if people want to buy. And you can also write to me at futurefintechframework@gmail.com in case you want to get the code and you couldn't understand it here. And I'm happy to help and take questions. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik. Just one quick question from Sahil is what do banks have to do to adopt this new reality? Is there a way that the large banks can innovate to prevent their revenue leakage?
Yeah, so banks are doing many things. The first is there are different approaches they are taking. So a small bank is trying partnerships. Okay, so there are ways. So partnership is one of the core enablers. So even large bank to some extent have to. So partnership one way. Second is they are reorienting their technical stack. So ICICI Bank, which is the largest bank, has reoriented its technical stack wherein they enable others to use their stack. So partnership, reorienting their technical stacks. These are 2 quick ways in which bank can orient themselves to this new reality. Is in my opinion the way it will go.
Yeah, thank you, Karthik, for your wonderful insight on this 3F framework. And I am sure that the audience here will love to grab a copy of your book with the discount offer that you're given. So with that, a small token of appreciation from the Institute of Product Leadership for your efforts. Yeah, thanks for your time. So have a great rest of the day. Over to you, Shama.
Thank you. Thanks. Nice
Thank you, Narottam. Yes, and thank you, speakers, for sharing your brilliant insights. It was engaging and fantastic at the